What's better than an all-day breakfast?
Maybe we can have a long lunch.
I would love a nice long lunch.
I'll take a long lunch.
This is Matt and Alex's
Long Lunch.
Hello and welcome to another Matt and Alex Long Lunch. Very excited to be sitting down and just really unbuckling the belt and consuming as much great conversation as we can with this week's guest, who is Mr. James Bay.
Yeah, it's interesting, some of you might be familiar with us from Triple J and Breakfast Show, and they certainly had a very specific style guide of music. So it's been really nice and interesting to be chatting to musicians that sit outside of the usual scope that we've normally chatted to, and James Bay's a perfect example of that kind of musician. Absolutely worldwide sensation, really, with his song "Let It Go," which Alex Dyson, before we chatted to him, I was listening to all of his songs and stuff, and I mean, that's a tune. You know what I mean?
Didn't we capture a bit of audio of you just singing along really loud? That's right. You have to go back to the day that we chatted to James Bay earlier in the week. We gave you a little bit of the conversation. But This is the time where we get to hear the full thing. He was a really nice dude, really chatty. It's one of those interviews where we didn't have to sit and do a massive setup. I remember we just sort of started, g'day, how's it all going over there? We just rolled with it, which is, I always love when that happens with our guests. So that was really cool.
Absolutely. So check it out. I hope you enjoy it and hope you're enjoying your Saturday. Maybe order an oyster and a glass of sparkling, and this is a long lunch.
A little bit of Tabasco on top, if you don't mind.
Wait, what is it? What's the shaved stuff called? It's not a Grenache. It's a what is it?
I don't know. You were telling me all about the tannins yesterday.
Oysters with a granata. That's right. It's a granita. A granita. I always forget granita.
Of course, often find oysters near the ocean shore. A lot of them are being farmed in bays. And that brings us beautifully into Mr. James Bay, our discussion here today on Matt and Alex's Long Lunch. Enjoy.
Nice to see you guys.
You too.
It's sort of a lovely. I mean, it's not that. I'd rather be in Australia. There's no two ways about it. But doing the old early morning. It's not 9 o'clock in the morning yet. That's okay. There's no complaint there. The other day, I started at 5:15 a.m. to do a 5:45 chat on a German. Live on a German breakfast show, because it's an hour ahead there. So for them, it's 6:45, and that's pretty reasonable sort of working in the morning. Anyway, but this is lovely. It's kind of nice to sort of do this. I mean, at the end of the day, the opportunities we have because of the internet is all exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the German breakfast shows like? Because the ones I watch overseas, they're talking rapid fire in a language I don't understand. They just hit you with a question out of nowhere. Is that kind of what it's like?
Yeah, because they're sort of talking to however many millions of viewers are watching on the sort of big main ones, and then there's sort of just you, who's kind of, they've got all sorts of pre-prepared stuff, and they wanted me. I had pre-recorded the performance bit, because singing any song at 5:45 is just
it's a tough ask.
But they did ask me that the easy bit was, they said, "Can you just wear the same t-shirt and jeans when we chat to you," sort of thing, and put the camera in the same spot in the room and all of that. So I did, and I thought that's totally easy. And then they got on and started chatting, and they said, after all the chat, they said, "Anyway, you've pre-recorded a thing for us." And I thought, I could have been in my dressing gown.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they ask you to wear the same t-shirt and jeans. You're like, yeah, it's COVID. I've been wearing them for the past 3 months. Thanks very much.
Exactly.
Hey, speaking of which, James, I mean, obviously so much stuff locked down. I'm so intrigued to know, you've been promoting this new song of yours, Chew on My Heart, which we will talk about really shortly. But for the lead up to this, when everything was locked down, what does James Bay do? Like, what do you like doing that isn't music, that isn't promo? Because, do you like, I read you're into animation. Have you been making your own animations while you've been locked down, or what do you do?
The two other things outside of music that I do love, and that I sort of tend to try and do, that I don't usually have time to do, are kind of, I love playing football. I don't know if you guys call it soccer over there.
Yeah, well, we call it soccer, but football, yeah.
Yeah, but you also, if you call it soccer near someone who is a purist, you'll get a beat down. You will get put in your place.
That's good to know. That's good to know. But yeah, so I adore playing that game. even though they restarted the fully professional sort of top level stuff without crowds about 4 or 5 weeks ago now, maybe even longer. They haven't any amateur stuff because we have like a slot on a Thursday night on like a local AstroTurf pitch that is like a religion, and I adore it. And we haven't been able to do it. We still can't do it. So I do typically. I like doing that kind of thing, and I haven't been able to do that. So there's this guy over here called Joe Wicks who goes online by like the Body Coach is his thing that he goes by. He's a really nice bloke who is just he's like a fitness guy basically. And I am not like a gym person. Don't go near the gym. No interest whatsoever. Luckily my metabolism is pretty fast. So I've always been sort of right on that front. But I've been 5 times a week for like just over half an hour a day. I've been doing his thing, which is why I look like Schwarzenegger now.
We could tell, man. I could tell.
I know.
I've seen his videos. They look great.
But like, as far as like animation and stuff, I've always drawn and painted. I did that stuff before when I was a little kid, before I even played, started trying to play music. But I'll tell you this quickly, or as quickly as I can. There's now and again, I'll do something like a live drawing class. I'll go to one if I can. This is pre-COVID. And the last one I went to, the guy running it, he started it with this amazing little sort of technique to sort of warm up. Basically, you put your pencil on the page and you look at the thing you're drawing. You look at the subject, in this case it was a person, and you move your pencil around the page. Never take your pencil off the page and never look at the page. So you don't know like what you're doing, essentially. All those, and what's beautiful about it as a creative person who starts writing songs 1 billion times a day and barely finishes, like maybe finishes one of them once a week, is that all of those inhibitions, they just disappear. With this type of drawing, you cannot judge what you're doing because you can't see it. You just have to enjoy the process of creating and just sort of go with the flow. So I've sort of fallen in love with, I've drawn in all types of ways ever since I can remember. But this version ends up looking, I'll say it like this, even though you'll know what I mean, it ends up looking almost the most childlike. But it's the most inspiring thing.
I know what you mean. At university, I did a subject called Space Lab, and one of our, tasks was to draw with our eyes closed on the page. And you open it up and you're like, what's going on here? But I paid thousands for that degree, and it hasn't served me too well. So,
but James,
anyway,
I also,
yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm taking you back to the soccer thing. I'm shocked that you are allowed to play soccer. Do you not have managers? Look, when I started an acting degree, I was playing AFL, and they said to me, this is in university, they said, you can't play AFL, mate. You'll hurt your face. All right? Like,
yeah.
Are you telling me?
My guys are worried about my hands. They're worried about my face, my hands, my teeth, my fingers, my everything. But you kind of can't hold me back from that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And they love it. My managers adore. They kind of get it. They have enough of a love. One of my managers, he almost went pro just before. This is like way back in like the early 80s, just before football became the big, like bursting with money, exciting sort of industry that it's become. He almost went, like he played at Old Trafford, Man United's ground. He played in FA Cup games and stuff. Like he was like a legit. Anyway, they love it, and they do worry, in honesty. But that's because they're wicked managers. Like they're great managers, but otherwise they're sort of like, he's got to do it.
Absolutely. Well,
just no slide tackles, just like FIFA. No pressing A or no pressing X or whatever.
Can't keep mashing
no going in goal. FIFA's the other thing I can't get away from in lockdown. FIFA's the other thing I adore.
Yeah, that is good stuff. But amongst the FIFA, amongst the live drawing and the football playing, you're also being able to make some incredible music. Your third album is coming up, and we've heard the first taste of it. It's a huge song, which is called Chew on My Heart. And mate, I really, really dig this song. It's so joyous. It's really incredible. Tell us about when it started formulating, percolating as something that's been around for a while. Was it a source of inspiration more recently?
I've been writing for this third album since about this time last year. Last year I put an EP out, which was cool. It was called Oh My Messy Mind. It was very sort of stripped down for the most part. Very kind of, it was sort of quite a therapeutic little process making that EP. And just sort of continuing the sort of journey on from my first album, second album, sort of putting things out. And then after that EP, I did some touring at the start of 2019. Suddenly I was on a tour with Ed Sheeran, opening up it all around Europe, opening up for him in like literally in football stadiums and stuff to sort of 70, 80,000 people a night. There was 2 nights in Germany in a place called Hockenheimring, which is a racetrack. And the only gigs they've really had, they've only ever had like 30 gigs. Yeah. Since the early 80s, they had like Metallica, the big Tina Turner stuff back in the 80s, Michael Jackson. It's only when you can't, and he'd already done loads of football stadiums in Germany, and they wanted him again. So he did on both night on each night. He did first night 100,000, second night 102,000 people.
Oh man, how do you feel walking out to you'd barely register that it's people that are there?
I mean, knowing Ed in the way that because I know him a bit, and from before that, way before that tour, and you know, he's brilliantly level-headed and ready to tackle every opportunity, all on his own with his acoustic guitar and his loop pedal. And it's so inspiring to see. And his buzz was like slightly different that night. It was cool. I mean, it's you know, he's over the moon every night, but it was cool to see that. And he was just so excited. Those were the biggest gigs he'd ever done. But those 2 nights.
Well, you go from football stadiums to race car tracks. Next step is like what? Salt flats or like large Grand Canyons? I'm supporting Ed in the Grand Canyon next week. That could be the next spot.
But I started in all the little the highs were phenomenal on that tour. So you know, it was all such a roller coaster, but it was such an amazing experience. Last year, 2019 was cool. It's weird that the last gigs even I did were stadiums. And then we can't gig at the moment. But I started writing in little gaps between those shows and carried that thing on. And from end of February to end of March, I was in Nashville in the studio. I'd written all the songs and I was recording them all to get this whole album together. And it was only after that, coming home and lockdown and having to stop and having to listen sort of to these songs again with a different perspective, that usually I wouldn't really be hearing these songs until after the album comes out from this perspective. But I was able to reflect on the songs and work out that through all of the time I spent writing these songs and through all the time I spend writing any songs, I'm drawing naturally, typically from a sort of a place of kind of heartbreak. And I don't know, those emotions just resonate. Even if it's not my heartbreak, I'm just some writing instinct of mine is drawn to that. And songs form, or it's just emotions relating to sadness and that kind of thing. And I've just realised, as I listen back through these songs, Chew on My Heart being a great example, this is the most positive thing I've ever written. It's taken me completely by surprise. And the vast majority of this album is sort of centred around and rooted in, as far as the subject matter. I've been with my girlfriend for 13 years. And since we were just kids, and I'm typically pretty private about this stuff. There's a part of my sort of private life that's very much private life, but I suppose something so enormously important and sort of affecting was always going to find its way one way or another in the beautiful, positive way that it should into my songs. So it's done that for loads of this music. And it just slightly took me by surprise. I guess I've done so much hard work to sort of keep it private. But it found its way through. and so a lot of these songs are sort of snapshots of what the whole experience has been like. This one, Chill My Heart, is almost one of the more sort of teenage ones. In a way, it's about being madly in love with somebody and to the point that you're sort of like selfishly just wanting more and more and more of the person. But yeah, it's that's where the sort of the euphoria and the joy kind of comes from in this song.
So, James, I want to ask then, I mean, we do this radio show every morning and I have a partner I've been with for many years now, and, you know, bringing up a story, say, when I break a glass by accident and I tell it on the radio show and I have to sort of go, oh, you know, hey, I'm told the story about how I broke the glass on the weekend. I hope that's okay. What's the discussion with was there a big discussion that you had to have about, hey, this is going out to my 1.25 million followers on Instagram, all my worldwide fans.
You know how we chew on each other's hearts? I wrote a song about that.
Yeah, you know that thing we usually do on Tuesday nights? Yeah, well, now everyone knows.
Look, I totally get you. And it's definitely been a conversation to some degree, but I tell you what's kind of amazing, and I suppose I wouldn't have expected anything different knowing Lucy's her name. Knowing Lucy as well as I do. That's annoying.
That's
Lucy's texting you. Are you talking about me?
I wish it was that exciting. It was some sort of weekly like battery report on my. I wish it was.
Mate, that's all I get. I get Domino's pizza. We're staying in tonight. Order.
Yeah, exactly. I suppose what's awesome is because she's, understands the privacy vibe as much as me, better than me. She, of course, I've signed up for the life that I live publicly and professionally. She didn't, and that's brilliant and okay and fine. And I've always been very kind of careful and cautious about overstepping that line. But there's this moment within all of it that I think I've recognised that you don't want to go so far as to sort of completely act like someone doesn't exist when they do. Then there's a different degree of like, well, that's not cool. And I think, I know that she understands that and is essentially kind of going, well, yeah, of course you can say this and that about the fact that we exist and that I exist and that it's a very real, very important thing to us both. And that's where this music is like a sort of almost a long overdue tribute and a massive showing of gratitude to such an enormously important thing in my life, this relationship and thing in our lives, mine and hers. So it's all, there's still boundaries and lines and that makes complete sense to me, but there's an amount that's completely okay with her to sort of answer your question, which makes sense to me and hopefully makes sense to other people, but doesn't really matter.
For sure.
Definitely. And with the music going very well, it's interesting that you've invested in startups as well. Matt O'Kine here was watching the video for Chew on My Heart, which is excellent, by the way, that you've managed to pull off during this quarantine period. But Matt, you saw a bit of a targeted ad before the video started.
Have you seen this? I swear to God, I'm watching Chew on My Heart on YouTube, and this is the ad that comes up before your song.
Because of the activation, the 40 pounds of resistance all of a sudden creates a fit face. And I believe that it's going to revolutionize fitness and beauty and the way that we think about staying in shape.
So to just explain what that is, it's what's called a Jawsize, and it's a little rubber exercise thing that you put in your mouth and bite down on repetitively for like 10 minutes a day.
To get better at chewing.
To get a chiseled jaw. And this is what comes up on the before Chew on My Heart.
Is Chew on My Heart just, a bit of a funneling people into buying this new jaw exercise equipment?
It's just a whole agenda I have for people to get better at chewing.
You're the new 50 Cent and vitamin water. That's what this is. This is you.
Sure. That is that says so much about like the internet listening to what we're doing.
Yeah.
Someone types chew and the whole of your internet goes like, right, he wants a better face.
Well, that's the thing. It could be targeting the song, or that could be just Matt's algorithms of what Matt's been searching with his trying to make his mouth
maybe the Snapchat filter.
Great smile, Matt.
Well, the Snapchat facial recognition has probably noticed I'm getting a bit flabby in the COVID times around the gullet. Hey, but James, I do want to ask about the video because I've heard that you went to Paris to do it, which, to be fair, you're in a single room and then also in a field. I feel like going to Paris was just an excuse for you, really, to get out.
I wish it was actually Paris. Unfortunately, it was about an hour away from Paris in a sort of like, I don't know. It was like just a village.
It looked hot. Was it hot that day?
It was way too hot. It was scalding hot, and I naturally am very, very good at getting sunburnt. But there was a very, very helpful person who, in between shots, was holding an umbrella over my head, which was kind of fantastic.
That's the parasol there in France.
I managed to stay pale.
No, it's a really beautiful clip, and I think it really adds to that idea of that positivity that it brings to that the song brings to us and the people listening to it.
James, we better let you go. Thank you very much for having a chat to us about the new single "Chew on My Heart." What other great titled songs have you got on the album? Because it is coming up. We've got new music from James Bay on the way. Any other great titles? Maybe pick your other favourite.
I will. I'll give you some clues, but I realised as well, like as far as pushing. Sorry, this is kind of a long answer, but I'm going to go for it. As far as sort of pushing boundaries in this music, and like when I mentioned to you about that version of life drawing that I've been doing, where you kind of throw your inhibitions out the window and just sort of go with it. "Chew on My Heart" is one of my favourite titles for its excitement and its madness. It's
did you coin the term? Is that like a Scouse I've
not
thing,
heard
or did you just come up with it?
I don't know if I'm sure someone else must have said that kind of thing in the past, but as far as I know, we went pretty unique on that one, and we couldn't really find it. But anyway, boundary pushing. On the second album, the boundary I pushed was very very much a sonic sort of boundary. I changed the sounds to quite an extreme degree at times, and I didn't realise I kept sounds a little bit more traditional on this third album, as you'll sort of find out. But song titles outside of "Chew on My Heart," they were more. I've written songs in the past and been very keen to have an exciting title. I want something that's going to jump off the page, blah, blah, blah. This time it was so about the sentiment in each song and the language in the song that, like, there's a song on the album called "One Life." And I don't know, there's probably a load of other songs called "One Life." There's a song called "Right Now." It wasn't about, like, the song titles being so, it's just more about the song. And I kind of enjoyed, instead of being so paranoid about having 10 or 12 like insanely exciting song titles, it's just, again, more about the song and about the sentiment, about the message in the song. But I don't know, you might find some other stuff on there that you like, titles wise.
Excellent. Well, we're looking forward to it. James Bay, thank you so much for joining us on All Day Breakfast. It's been a pleasure to chat to you. Good luck getting back out into the music world and the indoor soccer futsal world. We appreciate your time and all the best.
Nice one, guys.
That's it. The All Day Breakfast kitchen is closed. Got a story we need to hear? All the links are at mattandalex.com.au.